Well, we may have lost the planet, but at least we saved the wardrobe. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, DC Classic, Ambush Bug. Erwin Schwab is deeply delusional, morally ambiguous, and obsessed with superheroes. As Ambush Bug, he sought to join the rarefied society in a bodysuit he claims fell to Earth from the planet Schwab. Harassing superheroes including Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Cobra, he displayed the abilities of teleporting and healing from any injury. Failing as a villain and faring no better as a hero, he briefly found his niche and measure of stability as Bug, superhero field correspondent for Channel 52 News. He still maintains that he has cosmic awareness and that reality is merely comic books being read by extra-dimensional superior beings. Well, at least his sock was spared from the giant radioactive space spider. What? Just before we get a closer look, stay with me. Before we get a closer look at the DC Classics Ambush Bug, the tape measure is going to tell us. Now, I'm only going to go to the top of his head. In theory, I should really go to the top of his antennae at being the tallest point in the figure. But I'm going to drop it down a bit. And we're going to say, though, that Ambush Bug stands more close to about 6 3/4 of an inch in height, or if Ambush is going to stand about 16.5 centimeters tall. Yes. It does seem like I've been busy lately looking at DC Multiverse figures here on the channel. Just bringing in a bunch of them right now. Just happen to have them off to the side. Here's first what Ambush Bug looks like with the Build-A-Figure or BAF if you prefer Plastic Man. The figures that were part of that wave, by the way, were Energy Suit Superman. Correction, though, I did want to make to the Energy Blue Superman was that in the review of him, I did mention that his origins was he wanted to improve his IQ, and it resulted in splitting his psyche into the blue and red versions. That was actually the classic Energy Superman. This version of Superman actually took a different form. His body by that point had become basically essentially energy, and he needed to build this containment suit to contain all that energy. Henceforth, Blue Energy Superman. That same wave also brought us the Harpoon Hand Aquaman. It did also bring in the Mosaic version of John Stewart. Something also I didn't mention in either one of those reviews was that both the figures, John Stewart and Aquaman, were the Platinum editions. They weren't the regular retail release versions. So the regular John Stewart, for example, would still have the more classic-looking Green Lantern symbol here on the front. And then for Harpoon Hand Aquaman, the regular version would have had not the black armor on the sides of his shoulder, it would have had silver instead. Oh crap, I just may have broke the bike with all that backpedaling. Let's look at the accessories though. Yes, please, that come included with Ambush Bug. First, the figure comes included with a trading card. The thing that's interesting about Ambush Bug, if you're not familiar with the character, is he's sort of the DC equivalent of Deadpool. Somewhat self-aware and introducing the audiences kind of to what's going on around him. Created by Keith Giffen in 1982. Again, a lot of inspirations I think went then to Deadpool, and you can really thank Ambush Bug for a lot of the character traits that Deadpool has now. Feature on the front, though, again, we've got source material, no figure photography anymore. It indicates, though, down below, it's Ambush Bug from the DC Classics line. Flip around, though, to the back. His real name is Erwin Schwab, and there is a fairly substantial read, so if you're not as familiar with the character of Ambush Bug, you can pause and read for yourself. That did happen, by the way. Psst, psst. I did, by the way, read this at the beginning of the review. Yeah, I know, I did. Let's move that off to the side. The figure also as well comes included with the display stand. The stand itself, I mean, what's really different about this display stand that we haven't already gotten before? Nothing. The answer is nothing. The DC logo is still branded down below. You've still got the peg off to the far corner that can plug into either one of Ambush Bug's boots. Or is that his feet? He's wearing a suit, so I suppose that would still be his boots. Now, the figure does also come included with what's rather interesting, an extra hand. Not that it's interesting that he has a hand, but it's interesting where that hand happened to be. No, that's not leading to a dirty joke. The hand was actually part of a separate baggie inside, not the actual tray itself that contained Ambush Bug, but rather it was actually just next to the trading card. Well, I'm describing all this. You guys saw at the beginning of this video. The closed fist, though, is one possible option if you did want to remove the hand that he has right now. The thing, though, removing it, though, it does do away with one thing. He then can't hold on to Cheeks the Toy Wonder. What? Yes, let's put that down for a second. The figure, his one other accessory is that he comes included with Cheeks the Toy Wonder. It's basically a doll he finds and then later becomes his partner. So ridiculous. Cheeks, as you can see, is dressed very somewhat similar to sort of like the Flash. He's got a big C down below because his name is Cheeks. He's got like little lightning bolts, or I guess those would be antennas on the top of his head. He has no articulation. He's a doll, after all. Hey, I just realized I rhymed. And he does have his hand sort of permanently bent like this because the idea in mind is that you're supposed to take the hand for ambush bug and you just take cheeks and just slide his tiny little hand. It's like he's walking a child to the park. There we go. And he can carry around the doll with him. Now, based on this and the fact that he does now have he has a dynamic hand this whole time on the other side of his arms, there's no way at all I'm ever going to decide to change his hands out for the closed fist. If it was to go on this side, that's one thing. But to then go on this side and replace the whole idea of him carrying around his toy wonder, his partner, why would I do that? I'm just going to leave it off altogether. To show you what it looks like, though, if you did want to change out the hands, go ahead and just hold on to his forearm for dear life, whatever you do. Just going to wiggle this off, remove it from the post. That's pretty easy to do, and then just pop on the new hand. I mean, it's fine and good, but now you're kind of left with this hand. The hand, I feel, is just, I mean, you could technically put cheeks in his hand. That sounds wrong. You could put cheeks in his hand. Unfortunately, though, I think just with the weight of that probably would have caused stress. I've already noticed, though, that with my ambush bug, he's a little loose in the shoulders. So really, the last thing I would really want to do. I mean, he doesn't even have like a gripping hand either. So it's not like he could really hold on the side of cheeks. Go away. You can't even do that. So, I mean, the only option really is to hold the gripping hand or use the gripping hand. But I can't do that because now I've swapped it out to show all of you. Let's just pop that off right now, at least. We'll put it back on the way it was, way I found it. I'm probably just going to be putting that extra hand. I have like a little loose bag. I just kind of put all my extra... Well, that's not 100% true. All the hands I don't know really belong to anything. I kind of keep separate on their own. But like characters like this, I usually tend to take like the trading card if I'm not displaying it in my trading card sheets, the extra display stand, and then all of those accessories, and I label the bag. Anybody care about that? Nobody cares at all about that. Hopefully you will care a little bit more about Ambush Bug. It's an interesting looking character. One thing that's unfortunate for Ambush Bug, and I guess fortunate for me, I was only really introduced to the character through buying comics. Not that I specifically went out of my way to pick up Ambush Bug comics, but just by the virtue of picking up... Have you ever gone to, like, back in the 80s, maybe even in the 90s as well, have you ever bought, like, those little bags that sometimes contained 4 or 5 comics? You know what I'm talking about, right? And on the front and on the back, it was always advertised the comics that you were going to be getting. You may pick this up and think, hey, that's a Batman comic I don't have. I'm going to pick this up with the assumption inside that everything else behind it would be all the Batman comics. Oh, you know what they do. They always rope you in that way. Sure, you buy it with the comic in mind on the outside, but everything else inside is what we consider filler comics. Those are generally comics that have no value whatsoever. Those are generally comics of characters you probably have never even heard of. Super Pro, anybody? Anyways, though, the thing about Ambush Bug is by virtue of that, I was introduced to the character. Between that, and a lot of times also in the Sears catalog, and I know way off tangent here. If you ever had a Sears catalog back in the day, especially if you're in Canada, you could buy yourself like entire sets of like 50 comics. They would just basically advertise it, and they would just have an image just sprawled across where all the comics just sort of spread out in a fan. And you could look at that and say, oh, that's a Superman comic, that's a Flash comic, that's a Batman comic, then ask for it for Christmas. And then, of course, everything else that was in that stack, Ambush Bug, you probably got like 2 or 3 of them inside. So by that, I was unfortunately sort of adopted into the idea of then looking at Ambush Bug. And I gotta say, I kind of liked the character as a kid growing up. He was a little wild. He was a little zany. I mean, just the fact that he has one of his, I don't know if you would consider it a partner, but he has like an Argyle sock he calls Argyle. Zany. Again, a lot of inspiration for Deadpool a little bit later on. Now, from the standpoint of a figure, I mean, if you're looking at him, he's essentially all just a molded green figure. There's a lot of possibilities if you're a customizer, for example, to get probably several Ambush Bugs. Remove the head, obviously, and then you basically have just a body to work with. The body is pretty lean in build, very similar to like a Flash style of body. What's notable, though, is the way they've sculpted the head sculpt. Now, of course, on the front, you've got the goggles there, and I like the way they've added these little dollops of blue. He's got some nice panel lining there on the front. Kind of gives him a little bit like a faux mustachio. And he's got these long antennae. One of the more notable traits of Ambush Bug is that he has these antennas on the top. These are soft and plastic. Not that I'd be really worried, but I'm not going to be bending them all too much. But they are fairly soft. I don't think I would have to worry as much that they would be potentially breaking. Stop touching it, whatever you do. But the head sculpt is generally quite good. You got the ears sculpted on the side. I like that they've given him a big expression on his face. He's so delusional. He's in his own world. Painted nicely are the teeth on the top and the bottom. You've got a little bit of a tongue on the inside there as well. Again, it's a nicely sculpted Ambush Bug. This isn't going to appeal to everybody, but those that grew up with Ambush Bug probably are really going to be digging the look of this character. Generally, though, he's all kind of molded here in a very lime green jello plastic. Unfortunately, again, as already mentioned, I'm a little, not my arms, but Ambush Bug's arms are a little on the loose side. In fact, there are actually a couple of things on the figure that were loose, the other thing being his ankles. I don't know why they had to be loose, really. The fact that I just literally took the figure out about an hour and a half ago from the packaging, and yeah, he's already got like loose ankles. Probably, again, I don't know if they've used the mold from another figure from before, but if they haven't already, this would be a great mold to use for a future figure release. Now, for the figure's articulation, Ambush Bug, start first with his head, is going to be on a ball joint, so it allows the head to rotate all the way around. Careful of those antennae. Head looks up about that high. It looks down. You can also move it back and forth as well. His upper torso, yes, is on a ball joint. His lower torso, yes, is also on a ball joint. Yes, he still has the softer lower trunks. Some people call them figure diapers. They are a little more on the diaper side of thing. You can really see there's a gap. But granted, that's only because I'm squeezing the sides. Stop squeezing the sides. But there is, though, a gap on the front, which is unfortunate because when you're looking at the figure, if you're looking at it this way, you can even still see there's a slot right there, a little open area. Maybe that's where he stores his extra change. Arms rotate all the way around. Again, it's a little loose on the shoulders for mine, at least. The figure does have a swivel in his bicep. The figure does have a double hinge on his elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. Legs split out. Once again, they're on ratcheted joints. The legs go forward, easy enough. They also go in the back, fairly easy too. You can swivel at the top of the thigh. The figure does have a double hinge on the knee. And then again, you've got your articulation where it counts in the ankle, so it moves back and forth. Yeah, it's still sad. It's loose on mine. It's loose on this side too. It does have an ankle rocker, and the figure does have toe articulation as well. This is one of those deep cuts. Not everyone's going to really dig the idea of getting an Ambush Bug. Again, I love the idea that they also came included with cheeks. Come on. Put that also in his hand as well. You know, the thing again about this is, like, I don't know, honestly, would I have wasted the plastic to include a secondary hand with really giving him only one accessory to work with, and that one accessory just happens to use the same hand that would then be replaced with an alternate hand? Just put the figure right there. Let's move it. Why do we still have this here? Let's move that out of the way. Yeah, to include a secondary hand like this, even if it was even part of the tray in the first place, kind of makes you think, did they have any plan to include the hand, or they just decided as an afterthought, you know, let's pack the hand, let's put it inside of a little bag, and let's stick it on the back of the packaging. That's my thought, because if not, why would they have not just made a permanent impression in the actual clam case where the hand would have been in there? That's usually the case with all these extra hands. But still, though, I don't know. If you're going to include cheeks, and you're also only going to have the one gripping hand, it's only going to allow the figure to hold the doll on one side. Why waste the plastic to produce a secondary hand that then would dismiss his one only other accessory? I think if anything, they should have then used the plastic instead and made the plastic available for his Argyle sock, Argyle, which I think would have been a better way to make use of the plastic than giving him an extra hand. It's not that I would say Ambush Bug is one of those deep-cut character releases based on a very limited recent comic run. This guy, when you think about it, has been around since the early 80s. But casual collectors, though, seeing this guy on the store shelf may pass him just not knowing who he is at all. The thing about him, though, is at least from producing him, not that I produce action figures for a living, but I would imagine the costs were kept pretty low to produce them because they only needed to tool a brand new head. Because I think the body's been used before. The more I'm looking at it, especially the markings that he has on his shoulder, he's got little triangular carvings in his shoulders and the back of his body. I'm thinking that they probably pulled this body from the earlier release Platinum Edition Beast Boy. Not the Build-A-Figure Beast Boy that was part of the Teen Titans wave, but the one that was sold separately that came included with a bird. I think they're probably using the body for that. So right away, they're already saving the monies there. They're only then having a brand new sculpt a head and, of course, dedicate some plastic and some money to produce Cheeks the Toy Wonder, one of the welcomed included accessories that come included with Ambush Bug. Granted, he doesn't come included with Argyle's sock, but not that he necessarily needed it. I don't think he really honestly needed to have the closed fist. The problem with including something like that is if you ever decide you want to swap it out with the hand that he has right now, that hand is also there for holding Cheeks. So you're literally changing the hand, and then you're going to be the one holding Cheeks in your hand thinking, what am I going to do with these Cheeks now? Keep your dirty answers at the door. I unknowingly was introduced to Ambush Bug as a kid. I was one of those suckers that went to, I think it was a Kohl's bookstore here in Canada. Remember those baggies of comics that were all sold as a set? You'd get 4 or 5 of them. They were advertised with a big red sticker that would say 5 comics, $2.99. And you'd think, how could I go wrong? Advertised on the front was a Superman comic. A lot of times there was a Batman on the back. And just as a stupid kid, you just assumed that all the comics inside were all either Batman or Superman. Boy, were we misled. Between that and then stupidly asking at Christmas time for those 50-pack comic sets that were advertised in Sears Wish books, remember those? Yeah, a lot of times I got a lot of Ambush Bugs as a result of that. I think if I was to take a tally, I probably have still a lot of those Ambush Bugs in my collection now. I probably have 10 or 12 of them. and none of them were bought individually. They were always part of sets. I like Ambush Bug for that, because I was introduced to a character that I wouldn't have gone out of my way to have bought the comic for, but just by the virtue of being packed along with other things, I was introduced to the character that way. Probably one of the reasons why I wanted to add this one to my collection. Have you ever been a victim of that? Have you ever bought one of those comic baggies as a kid, thinking stupidly that you would have all, like Batman, all top-notch comics inside, and a lot of times, what did we get? Lurking inside was always crap. If that happened to you, let me know down below. If also you guys did enjoy this video, why not throw it a like? Hey, why not? If you guys want to stick around for more, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. We're also going to have some more DC Multiverse reviews coming your way, so making sure you're coming back on a regular basis. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.